What is going on, everyone? It is a very melty LFC transfer room. I think all of us are suffering from it today. Myself, Drew, and Matty. Drew, you were telling me it's over 100 for you, but you don't get it. England it might not be that hot, but in England, it feels worse. How are you coping? You've chopped all the mop up for it.
Yeah, I'm not having that, James. When we get like fires every year in California, I'm not. Like, I'll take it. Like, y'all aren't used to it, but I'm studying by. I don't have AC. Need to go to the girlfriend's house for the rest of the week for the heat wave. But looking forward to the games anyway.
I would say if you build a city in the desert, what do you expect? Whereas, Liverpool, Manchester, where we are, Matt, it's meant to be rainy. It's meant to be damp. It was a cotton city, weren't they? We're not built for this. How are you coping?
We're not. I'm not coping, to be honest with you, James. But I feel rude moaning about the heat in this country when you've got temperatures like Drew and Jack and Dan and all that I've got. Because I couldn't live in theirs. But best way to describe this weather is more, there's no swimming pool for us to dive into. So it's just sticky and horrible. We don't have air conditioning. We're not built for this. There's been fires and everything. It's just, England goes into carnage. Any snow, any sun, we go into carnage. But I've just clicked onto Drew's there as well. I can't believe it.
I know.
Looks like a new man.
Any help I can get with this heat, Matty, I'm taking it for now. Grow it back out in winter.
So we're here for the first Premier League room of the season. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do it a little bit differently this year, where we're going to preview a few fixtures. We're going to talk about a few fixtures that are really of an interest, really what impacts Liverpool, and potentially something that interests us. And then what we're going to do is I've got something planned, which I'm not going to tell you about. And then it's just a bit of fun. It's Friday. It's hot. It's horrible. So let's do something that's a bit more fun, a bit more quiz-like, a bit more sort of interactive with the people who've actually logged on in this weather. Louis, how are you doing, mate?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, sorry I'm late. Well, luckily, my girlfriend's parents got one of those fans where you shove the tube out of the window, and that's been a game changer. So I'm actually not too bad. Thank you very much.
I mean, he's gone for the white T-shirt. You must be cool. If I wore a white T-shirt, it'd just be covered in stains.
Yeah. Well, I'm going on holiday.
Is it all round to Louis tonight for the AC?
Yeah. I'm going on holiday, so yeah, free yard for you lot.
I'm just going to have a fallout with the missus, so I've got to go in the car and drive for an hour with the AC on.
Good idea, that.
But tomorrow night, I say tomorrow at lunchtime, peak time, we've got Frank Lampard versus Steven Gerrard. Both managers have not had the best of records so far. And it's kind of one of those type of fixtures where it kind of sets almost a tempo for the season, because neither club's really in any form of tempo at the moment. And it feels like it's one of those games that's so big that it might just help the other get momentum. Drew, with Villa versus Everton, who do you think's going to win in the battle of the managers?
I think Gerrard's got it pretty much locked at home. Against a shaky Everton side. I know Everton made some good recent signings, or decent at least, but I think at home Villa really need to show up, and we know Gerrard can get a team ready for a specific game. Last game of the season against Man City shows it. I think when the importance is there, he'll be the one that you back to get it over the line. I don't think Everton's going to do as bad as people said this year. I think their team's worse than them, and I think Frank can set up a pretty stubborn side at times. But I think Villa have the nod for this one.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, Louis, when I start to look at Everton, they're starting to build something strong at the back. Obviously, Connor Cody, that probably means they're going to go towards a back five. You're looking Cody, Tarkowski. I know Mina's injured, but when he comes back, Godfrey, that is a strong back three rotation. It's up front where they lack, isn't it? Ward-Prowse is out, and what they're left with is Solomon Rondon, and even they don't want to play it because they played the young kid Gordon up front in the last game. do you think it's just going to be a case of 0-0, nothing's going to happen, or do you think someone's going to do something?
I mean, I've started to sort of come into the belief that a 5 at the back in this day and age in the Premier League is a bit of a specialist formation. Like, I think it can easily, Thomas Tuchel, obviously, he'd classify it as a 3-4-3, but wing backs it's a 5. It's a very specialist formation. You've really got to know what you're doing. It sounds like it just instantly makes you better defensively because you've got that extra body, but it's something that a lot of players won't necessarily be used to, and that's a big adjustment. Obviously, bringing in Connor Cody certainly helps with that, and I don't think he could play in a back 4, so it definitely sounds like that's an intelligent thing to go. I mean, the bad example is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. When he thought his job was at risk because they were just shipping goals left, right, and centre, he said, "Sod it, I'll go for a back 5 because I think that instantly makes the team better defensively." And that they still got ripped to shreds, and that ended up being the end of his career. Obviously, not the same situation, but I don't necessarily think this will be an instant good thing, and I think it could be a gamble that doesn't necessarily pay off. I'm expecting a high-scoring game. I think it could easily be a Desmond Tutu.
Matty, what are you thinking? I'm looking at Villa and going, well, I know you mentioned you'd have had Coutinho back in the Liverpool squad quite a few times, and he had a bit of a tail off to the end of the season. He needs to do something at the start, doesn't he, to sort of justify that purchase and get the fans behind him?
Yeah, I think not just Coutinho. I think Gerrard needs to get them in gear because I seen something the other day. He's got like a similar win percentage to Gary Neville at Valencia at Aston Villa, and that's worrying. I've got to say, the way Gerrard started at Villa, I wouldn't have him as the Liverpool manager, and that pains me because I absolutely adore Steven Gerrard as my idol. But they've made some good signings, and when they do gel, they'll be decent. But then Everton, I think getting an on is a game changer for them. I really believe he's that good of a footballer. So it'll be interesting to see how Everton line up. I think they've made some smart signings, getting Tarkowski and Cody in, but I can't see anything past Villa win. I think Villa are just a bit more advanced going forward, and they've got more firepower. They've got like Coutinho, Douglas Luiz, got Danny Ings and stuff as well. So I do think that Villa should win, and Gerrard really needs to get them playing because it's worrying really how poor he has been. Yeah,
I mean, you make a good point. If we were Liverpool fans, that would all hell would be loose, wouldn't it, Drew? That we wouldn't accept the sort of that level of performance. It's not like he's not been backed. He's got a lot of the players that he ever wanted. Obviously, we know first game of a season of a newly promoted club is always quite an intense game, but he's got players that you could argue have the opportunity to get into this Liverpool squad. So why isn't he dominating teams?
I think it's a bit too early, to be honest. I think I saw the comparison of the stats with his managerial run at Villa versus Neville's, and then the counter argument of that Neville took a Valencia side that was finished 4th the season before, and then they finished, was it 11th or 16th or something like that, or they went down that far with Gary Neville, whereas when Gerrard took over for Villa, they were struggling pretty hard. I think they were 16th at the time. And I think he brought them up to 12th or 11th. I forget. But or 14th maybe. Not as high, but I think they were a severely struggling side. And there was the time when he took over where people were questioning if they'd be in the relegation battle. Gerrard pretty much got through at that point. And I think once you get through, when you're that kind of team going for avoiding the relegation battle, then you can see a dip at the end of the season where, you kind of accomplished your job and, you don't really need to go all out in the final few games of the season. So I think that the Gerrard in this Villa side will really be under the microscope for this season. So I'm also curious. I remember when Gerrard went into Rangers, he did a good job his first season, but he didn't have them performing at their best until the second season. So I think that, as you said, coming up your first game against a promoted side, that's always going to be tricky, as we found out last week. So I'd start looking at Villa's season over the next few weeks and judging it then.
Once again, Jen, thank you very much. Your support for the channel is always appreciated. Another super sticker. I can see that you're using the emojis. That's the best way that I can describe them, that Anthony's created and stuff like that. It's absolutely great that you support the channel as much as you do. And I think Drew makes a really good point, Louis, which is Gerrard's got a track. He's had an unbeaten season with Rangers. He had a bad first season at Rangers and then he brought them through. He has a track record of actually delivering success. He's won a league title. Lampard got Derby to the playoffs and screwed it.
Third to fourth, yeah.
It's not really, you would say that Gerrard's probably earned more patience than Lampard has.
Absolutely. Look, that's not to say that Steven Gerrard's going to win this game. That's not to say that Frank Lampard could do a half decent job at Everton, although I don't think he will, and I think he'll probably end up getting sacked at some point. I haven't got much to base that off. That's just my gut feeling. No, as you said, he took Derby from third place to fourth place in the Championship. Celebrated as if he got promoted in the semi-final. Obviously, it's a big moment, I understand, but you haven't actually achieved anything yet. Bottled the final, and then comes to Chelsea, does a decent job in his first year with no signings, then gets a £200 million war chest, buys some of the best young talent in Europe, and just completely drops the ball. There was an interesting interview at some point from him recently about his time at Chelsea, and he spoke about learning his lessons, etc. So I think this is the time where we'll kind of see that. He had that buzz from the Everton fans that just rallied behind the team for some reason, the team that had let them down for years, and that almost single-handedly kept them up, really. Now we'll see what he's really made of, because I said this a while ago, the Everton fans are not going to do that again. They're not going to go through the exact same thing again, setting off fireworks outside the wrong hotels of opposition teams, making themselves look like, complete prats, really. They're going to want to see something being built, and it's already a big time for both managers, really. Both managers really need to win this to kind of get their seasons really up and running, and get the fans on side. Yeah,
and I think this is one of those games where it's a momentum game, but I think you've all made some points. Like, Gerrard's got to start to knit this team together, and you made a really good point. And I don't know where you're going to sit on this, Matty, because obviously you want Liverpool to make signings, but sometimes signings disrupt what you're building. You've got a core structure of players and new personalities, new dynamics, new links. They're not always the same, are they? Sometimes. Oh, feedback. You all right, Matty?
Yeah, I can hear you. Tell me AirPods start. Sorry.
Picture that.
So,
go on, what did you say?
Yeah, it's like signings don't always make everything better. So the fact that both these clubs have got a lot of new faces through the door, it's going to take them some time to adjust, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to take them a little bit of time to adjust. I mean, Boubacar Kamara is a fantastic signing for Villa, unbelievable signing. So I do think once he miles better than Simon means the signings he's made, Gerrard will improve Villa, but it probably will take a few weeks. It does feel like this summer's rebuilt the side how he wants it. So he is going to be taking, like, say, your Mings and stuff elsewhere. Settled. So they are going to improve. It's going to take a few weeks. I love them to beat Everton about 7 or 8 now. To be honest with you, it'd be comedy. But I think it'll be really, really tight.
Matt, you're going to have to do a bit of work on the audio.
I'm going to put the AirPods in the side.
So, moving away from Aston Villa Everton, because obviously it's a big one. We need to start to look at the players that, the teams that are going to be affecting Liverpool. We've got Man City versus Bournemouth, Drew. Now, looks a slam dunk, but Bournemouth, they're off the back of a win, aren't they? So they did Villa. So do you think Man City have got anything to worry about, or do you think it's just going to be a nice walkover for them?
Yeah, this is Bournemouth's welcome back to the Premier League moment where Man City absolutely turned them over. Curious, I was really surprised, I think, when I saw a lot of the criticism of Haaland after the Community Shield, along the lines of, he's going to flop or that kind of stuff. It's similar to the Darwin Nunez, and it's like the guy scores goals and Man City create chances that have usually upwards of 80% ball possession sometimes against lower teams. So I think he's really lethal in that squad, and maybe they're going to trip up. I think they'll have a bit tougher experience against some sides in the league that they can't break down and they can't get the service to Haaland. But I think at home against Bournemouth, this is really going to be just a rollover session for Man City. I expect it to be one of those 4-0, 5-0 games. Haaland hat trick.
If anyone's got a player, Louis, that can stand up to Haaland, it's Bournemouth. Philip Billing is massive. So when he's doing those runs, you've got someone that can compete with him in the air. And Haaland, I don't think is necessarily the most technically gifted, shall we say. He's good. He's good at striking opportunities. So there's a chance.
I mean, Haaland is
loose.
exceptionally. Haaland is exceptionally quick as well. So,
Philip
maybe
Billing's not that quick, is he?
Yeah, maybe he can keep up with him in the air, but will he actually be there to compete in the first place? Is the real question. I mean, I'm not doing FPL this year, but if you are, I feel like this is the perfect time to, whip out a captaincy and shove it to Haaland. It's one of those ones where
move it away from Salah.
Well, I don't know. I'm sure we'll get to that, but it's one of those ones where towards the end of the season, when we're in a title race, you have your finger. It's not going to happen. You have your fingers crossed, and you think maybe Bournemouth could just surprise us all, and then you don't watch the game because it's going to be horrible, and then you check your phone and it's 5 minutes in, 1-0, Kevin De Bruyne, and that's the game gone. It's one of them. 5-10 minutes is all it will take. They'll carve out a lead and then they'll be cruising for the rest of the game. Maybe it won't even be a spanking because they know they've got a long season ahead of them and they can just chill out at 2-3-0. Honestly, they don't need to exert themselves. So no, long story short, I have no hope for Bournemouth whatsoever in this game. But best of luck to them.
Matty, I assume you're pretty much the same.
No, I've got hope for Bournemouth.
Oh,
I have. Wait there. I've got hope for because I strongly believe that last week when we played Fulham, everyone was saying the same thing. I've got no hope for Fulham. We'll walk all over Fulham and stuff like that. And Fulham showing how hard it is against the newly promoted side to get points. So I think I'm not going to say Bournemouth are going to slap them, but I do think if Bournemouth play the football that they can play, I think that they can make that tough game for Manchester City, to be honest, because we had a tough game at Fulham. No one ever predicted Fulham to, let's be serious, batter us last week. They battered us. I mean, Erling Haaland's a monster and a freak of nature, but Bournemouth battered us. Fulham battered us, and I believe Bournemouth could do the same to City. I think it's one of them where players will go into a game and be like, oh, this game's won, because I think that's the similar mentality they got Liverpool had last week. So I think Bournemouth could shock a few people, to be fair, and I've got all my faith in Big Dominic Solanke, to be honest with you, James. I think
Golden Boy himself.
Yeah, I think he's going to come on and bully them, to be honest. But nah, I do think City will win, but I don't think it's going to be as easy as we maybe think, just purely because they're a newly promoted side and them fixtures are difficult.
I think you're right. And, I'm going to keep moving through games because I think the game of the weekend, for me, the one that I'm going to sit down and watch is the Chelsea-Spurs game. I think this one is actually a game that probably is going to set the tone for, I think, the best of the rest, I think is the nice way of putting it, Drew. it's hard to predict a winner out of the Chelsea Spurs game, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that Chelsea at home tips it a little bit towards it because I would, based off the first week of the season, I thought Chelsea were quite poor against Everton. They just about got it over the line, and they didn't have the best of preseason. I don't think every player is embedded in. They're kind of, Marcus Alonso's out, the Cucurella's potentially coming in. Like Sterling's coming in. They have to integrate these new players, as we were talking about before. Sometimes it takes time, and Chelsea didn't have the best preseason. They didn't have the best first game of the week, whereas Conte seems to have taught them, up and running. Like I was watching their game against Southampton, and minus, Ward-Prowse's, kind of poked in goal finish to make it 1-0. They quickly turned that around and could have steamrolled Southampton even more. I know Southampton's not the bar you set for tough opposition. We've seen them lose 7-8-0 a couple times in the past seasons, but I think if there's anyone that can go to Chelsea and get a result at this stage, Tottenham's one of the teams that can do it.
I think Drew's right, Louis. I think, whilst Chelsea's still learning where the positions are and how it all comes together, we've seen that Conte has just drilled in that attack press mentality, a little like Klopp. So there is a good chance that this game might have come too soon for Chelsea, and that pressing could just do them over, or you think Chelsea have got a better chance?
I think that's a really good point, yeah. But I mean, I think I agree with Anissa. This could easily be either a very close game or a pretty boring draw. I mean, I'm sure this is all going to come back to bite me in the ass because I've made two predictions. But yeah, I mean, Tuchel is obviously a very adept in-game tactical manager, and he would have been most of this week studying what Conte's managed to get out of that Spurs squad and what they'll look to do. It's tricky, isn't it? They just need to sign a forward player. They need to get a striker, and I honestly don't understand why they're so closely linked with Frankie de Jong. Obviously, he's a fantastic player, but it's just not what they need right now. It would be like us going out and, I mean, I know Matip's just got injured, but going out and buying another world-class centre-back in our current situation, because everyone would be like, well, that's great, but we don't need that. We need a midfielder, arguably. So they're still figuring themselves out, I agree. So if anyone's going to win it, I do think it would be Spurs, but just because I think Tuchel in a fresh season, he is tactically very adept in in-game situations. So I think they might be able to hold out against this Spurs team.
Just that comment there, Matty. No Ronaldo or Messi in the Ballon d'Or this season. Is that it for the rivalry? Have we moved on? Have we gone past this now? Is it all about the new era of players?
Yeah, it's sad, really, isn't it? Like, even though they didn't both play for us, to be able to say we witnessed them, that they're like our years, Pele's and Maradona's and stuff. So when I see in the shortlist and see none of them on it, I mean, I didn't expect Messi or Ronaldo to get on it. Messi had a poor season. Ronaldo was United's best player, but still a poor season. But it is sad, to be honest, even though they didn't play for us. I'm gutted to see that era going. Messi's probably one of the best players I've ever seen with my own eyes. To be honest with you, really is. He's special. I'm firmly team Messi, me over team Ronaldo. But yeah, it's sad to see them not there. But end of an era, to be honest. But I'm happy for Dwight Benzema, really, because I do think he'll win it, and I'm happy for him because he was always in the shadows of Ronaldo, and now he's the main man at Madrid, and he deserves it because he's a fantastic footballer, and I am happy for him, really, to be honest with you.
He's just taken out Raul as well, hasn't he, for goals scored for Real Madrid, that's the benchmark everyone wants to beat is, can you get more goals than Raul? And he's doing that, probably puts him within that firm top three. It's Ronaldo, Benzema and Raul now, I think, as the top three goal scorers.
Yeah, so. Yeah. The fact he's surpassed that, he deserves it. He's the main man there, and rightfully so. I do think, though, if Liverpool had won the Champions League, it probably would have been Mane or Salah who got it. But now Mane's left, I do hope that Benzema gets it just because he's not at Liverpool.
Just because I'm that toxic. Right. So I'm not going to go through the rest of the games. Obviously, there's some great games going on, but we want to talk about things that affect us. And it's Friday. We're all hot, and I want to do something a little bit different. So I have created this, which I'm going to get rid of the little.
Ooh.
Oh. On this wheel is a range of things that you will have no chance to prepare for. So you'll be seeing some of them: tears of joy, ask the audience, Wonder Boy, unpopular opinions, ask the audience.
Oh, no.
Kloppy bye-bye. There is a whole range of things that could happen, and every time we hit one, gets deleted. So every Premier League room, we've got a completely different end to it. So what happens is I spin this wheel, it will tell us what we're going to be talking about, and it will tell us what question you guys have got to answer.
God, I'm nervous.
And, best part of all, comments decide who gives the best answer. There's a whole range of things that you guys could be doing. It's all down to the people watching. They decide who's going to do it. So you've seen it here first. Everyone else is going to, all the other fan channels will start to copy this, but we've done it first. Remember that. Off we go. It's going to land on a respin.
Oh!
No, overrated.
Oh! Edge of my seat. Ooh.
Overrated. Right. So the overrated category is simple as this. In the Liverpool team, which player do you think is the most overrated? Then in the Premier League, which player do you think is the most overrated? So you need to think about one for Liverpool and one for the Premier League. You're going to give me two names, and the chat's going to decide who they think has the best answer. You can put it in the chat. Tell me what you think. Tell me who you think it's going to be. Obviously, if you're new here, please like and subscribe to the video. This is just a bit of fun on a Friday, just something different to do. What we're looking for is the player for Liverpool that you think is the most overrated player, and the player in the Premier League who you think is the most overrated, because this is a Premier League room. Now, straight away, Anthony's got in there. I think he thinks Keita's the most overrated, don't you, Anthony? After that debate room that you lost. No, he's gone with Richarlison. There's a few names popping up in the chat as to who they think is the most overrated. Giving you a couple of minutes to think. But it's gone into overrated. So the most overrated player for Liverpool and the most overrated player in the Premier League. I'm going to start with Liverpool. I'm going to ask Drew, who do you think is the most overrated player for Liverpool?
Oh, God, this can get me in a lot of trouble. Should be an unpopular opinion as well. But hear me out. I'm going to say I love him as a player. I think he's extremely skilled. But I think Thiago, with what he's done for Liverpool so far, is most overrated. Now let me back that up.
It's just Matty in like one frame per second watching his reaction.
He is always injured. And when he plays, typically he is a phenomenal passer of the ball. We all know that. We all know how gifted he is technically. Possibly the most gifted player in the midfield in Europe, but he's always injured, and he's not always playing at his best. Like sometimes if he's not on top of his form, he's a liability in the midfield. He's slowest player in the team. I swear to God, every one of us could keep up with him in a sprint. So I think based on what he's given the team, the fact that we're talking about we need midfielders, he's a part of that. But that's why I say it. And I still love him. I still think he's amazing, but overrated in that regards.
Don't you worry, Drew. You've just got us the most clickbaity short video of all time. Drew, Louis, most overrated player for Liverpool.
I hate these kind of scenarios because I've just had to Google the Liverpool squad because I can't remember any of our players.
You only do watch-alongs like twice a week.
I know, but it's when I get put on the spot like this. It's not fair. Right. I'm going to say Roberto Firmino in terms of I don't think the fans overrate him. I think Jurgen Klopp at this moment in time is slightly overrating him. I think we all knew he was going to start against Fulham, and I think that's fine. But to pretend that he's anything but a backup at this point, I think it is just favouritism and being part of the old gang. He's not. He hasn't shown enough. I know Fulham's a one-off, but last season there just weren't many Roberto Firmino moments. It feels like that player that we knew and loved is dissipating at an alarming rate in front of us. Maybe he can do a job. Maybe he could be a good bench player. We don't know. We haven't seen it enough, but I don't think Klopp can afford to keep him as a starter because there's going to be too many situations like Fulham where Núñez comes on with 20 minutes to go and the game flips on its head. I know there are other substitutions as well, but we just had so much more creativity before. I think we had the XG before Núñez came on was like below 1. And then by the time it was full time, it was 2.5 or just over 2.5 XG. So that's my answer for Liverpool. Are we just sticking with Liverpool for now?
Then we'll do.
Yeah.
Then I'll open the poll and then we'll do Premier League. Matty, most overrated player for Liverpool. I know this is going to hurt you, but you have to give me one.
Jordan Henderson. I think it'll divide some of the fan base. People love him, people hate him, but he's just simply not good enough for Liverpool anymore. What he's done for the club, I adore him for. He got us the first title in 30 years and he'll always be a legend to me, but he's just not good enough anymore. If you watch that performance against Fulham, passes balls sideways. I've never seen Jordan Henderson throw a slide tackle, and it's a central midfielder who's meant to run the game for you. Doesn't tackle, just stands there. He'll point to players and say, you run there. And when they don't, he shouts at them and he'll just stand there. All he is just stands there shouting. He's so overrated. He shouldn't be in the Liverpool team. He's a fantastic leader and I do think he should be around the squad, but I don't think he should be starting anymore. I think he's just not good enough for Liverpool, and it has pained me to say that because I believe every Liverpool player is the best player in the world. I'm bitter and twisted, but Jordan Henderson for me, most overrated.
Okay, so the poll's now opened for who do you agree with, Drew, Louis, or Matty. I cannot believe nobody said the Ox. Shame on you all.
Is the Ox?
Is he rated?
Yeah,
who rates him?
But Drew went with Thiago as the most
Drew's
overrated
got 100%.
player.
Drew's on 100%.
Louis went for Roberto Firmino, and Matty went for Jordan Henderson for the most overrated not midfielder player in Liverpool.
You don't get out.
I would have got. To be fair, I think Roberto Firmino now is the most overrated. I think he's not able to do what he used to do. I haven't seen a no-look finish in 2 seasons, and I miss it. And I think the player that I loved is not the player that I'm seeing. And it's a real shame because I don't want him to go out as a shadow of himself. So that's why I'd have gone for him.
Anissa's gone for Robertson. I think that's interesting.
Robertson's a few people fell out with Robertson towards the end of the season, thinking because I think he was running on empty. So Robertson's an interesting shout for the most overrated.
I think the only thing missing from his game now is shooting ability. I think his role within the Liverpool team has changed. I don't think him and Trent operate anywhere near identical roles. And the left side doesn't operate the same as Liverpool's right side either. So I think a lot of people probably rate Robertson as compared to Trent, and I think that's unfair. And he gets into so many dangerous positions. All he needs to be able to do is convert. And yeah, I think that's harsh. Maybe there is an argument to be made, but I think that's harsh.
It's very harsh. Andy Robertson's unbelievable for Liverpool. If you look at his numbers for assists, he's only one behind Trent. And I'm not saying it for Trent's overrated or anything, but he's one behind Trent. Everyone sings Trent's praises, and Andy Robertson's one assist behind him since he signed for Liverpool. So quite clearly, if you're going to say Trent's amazing at crosses and his assisting ability, Andy Robertson's in that conversation as well. I think Liverpool are very.
Andy Robertson's fourth, isn't he, in assists ever in the Premier League? I think there's Leighton Baines, someone else who I've forgotten, Trent, and then Robbo.
And that's
it's crazy.
That whole either. So them assists have come from Liverpool. So he's had that. He's the fourth most assisted in the Premier League, and he's been at Liverpool 5-6 years. And he's a left back. Like, he's not overrated. He's probably underrated, to be honest with you, Andy Robertson.
Well, this isn't about the most underrated. That is a topic for a different day. Maybe we get to do it. It depends whether the wheel ever lands on it. Now we're going to go for the most overrated player in the Premier League, and we're going to go in reverse order now. So we're going to start with Matty. Most overrated player in the Premier League, in your opinion? You're 12% of the vote, so this has got to be a good one to claw back some votes.
Ruben Diaz. I think Ruben Diaz is so overrated. The fact he gets put in the conversation with Virgil van Dijk is an insult. He's not that good when you watch him. I don't think any of City's defenders are really that good. They're good as a team, but individually as a defence, I don't think they set the world alight. It was a tough one between him and Jadon Sancho, to be honest with you, but just purely because everyone compares Ruben Diaz to Virgil van Dijk, that's what does me head in the most, because Van Dijk's levels above any other centre-back in the Premier League. And I think probably the closest one to Virgil van Dijk in the league is probably Koulibaly. Now he's in the league, but Ruben Diaz is massively overrated. People think he's as good as Van Dijk, if not better, and it's just like, do you watch football if you genuinely believe that?
Louis, you can't pick the same player, by the way. I should have probably added that at the start.
It's even worse. Like, I couldn't think of a Liverpool player. Now I've got the whole Premier League to consider. I can't.
Yeah. Now you have every player.
It's even harder.
Pick one you think's overrated.
Right. I was thinking Aaron Ramsdale, but I think that's a hard argument to make. I'm going to go with the Brighton goalkeeper. I didn't realise. I think it's Sanchez is his name. I didn't think he was as highly rated until this past week, and like everybody thinks he's brilliant. But on the occasions that I've seen him, which is probably like 6 or 7 times last season, but with the ball at his feet, he never looks well. With the ball at his feet, with the ball coming at him in the box, he never looks comfortable at all. I think he's a good shot stopper, which is fantastic. But, you know, David De Gea is a good shot stopper. A modern day goalkeeper needs to be, you know, almost as good as an outfield player with their feet these days, and to be able to control the box as well, to relieve that pressure. First game of the season, he was not doing that at all. He was causing all sorts of grief for his own side. Brighton, yes, they got away with it in the end, but the goal they conceded came from him being, you know, really docile in the box, not commanding his area. And after that, you know, Man United were on the ascendancy, and he did nothing to cool down and calm down the game. He was rash. He was, you know, kicking the ball out. He wasn't collecting easy saves. I think he's slightly overrated for how much people go on about him at the moment.
Drew, most overrated player in the Premier League?
I was going to go for Calvin Phillips because I picked him as my flop of the season, but I'm going to take the low-hanging fruit and pick Ronaldo. I think Ronaldo in Man United's team, sure, he scored a lot of goals, but what he did to the team was pretty much disrupt it, create fractions within the team. He doesn't track back. He doesn't play defense. You could argue that he doesn't need to, but I think Liverpool and teams like Liverpool and Bayern and Real have shown that you cannot carry a single player on defense. And so when you have Ronaldo scoring, you know, enough goals, but that's all he's offering, and the detractions to the rest of the team in terms of in-team fighting, you know, leaving at halftime during friendlies. I think that as a player, like, you need to encompass his off-the-field antics too, in terms of how highly rated he is. And if we're talking about, what's he, 38 years old now, what kind of role model are you looking for? If you're still acting like a petulant child, that's selfish. You're not one of the best players in the world. You're overrated, and you're a detriment to your team. A bad example.
I wish I'd said Ronaldo. That was a good one.
It is a good one, isn't it? So we've got Ronaldo.
Good comments as well about Cucurella. The price that was paid, that's overrated. That I forgot about him, to be honest. Because
overpriced isn't necessarily overrated, though, is it?
No, but I think Brighton just had the pants down at Chelsea, to be honest. Because the games I watched of them last year, Cucurella didn't set the world alight, to be honest with you. So just makes me think if he's worth that, what's Trent and Robbo worth?
Well, we're going to launch the poll for the worst player in the Premier League. Obviously, Drew, you said Ronaldo. Louis, I forgot who you said already.
Brighton keeper.
Sanchez, that was it.
Sanchez and Matty.
Ruben Diaz.
I think for me, I'd have probably gone with Mendy, the Chelsea keeper, because I think everyone hailed him as someone that was the quality of Alisson and Ederson. And he can save a few shots, but I don't think he's that good a keeper. I think he lets in too many easy chances. I think when it's low down at his feet, he seems to get beaten by a lot of shots. And for me, I think he's massively overrated to say that he's a top 3 goalkeeper in this Premier League. I think actually David De Gea is a better keeper than him. Based on last season, yeah. So Martinez probably not. Sanchez I'm a big fan of. No, Martinez I'm a fan of. Sanchez, sorry, not Sanchez. Martinez at Villa I think is a cracking keeper. I think they're all potentially better than Mendy. But the vote is now in terms of who is the most overrated Premier League player. Drew, you've got 83% of the votes. Louis, you've got none. And Matty's got 17%. So it looks like that this one's going to be a clean sweep for Drew.
My choice was too niche. That's why no one gets it, man.
I can't believe people agreed with Drew about Thiago, you know. I am.
There's the caveat, Matty. There's the asterisk. If he played
More
every
people
single
agree.
game, then yes. But he's always injured.
If you would have said that if Thiago wasn't injured currently, people wouldn't have agreed. I think because he's injured, everyone's like, Thiago Alcantara.
No, that's part of it.
So more people think Thiago's overrated than Henderson.
That is
what
mad,
that poll. It's what that poll suggests. That's our listeners, everybody.
But is how can Henderson be overrated when he gets just constant hate? So his rating is down here, isn't it?
Funny, I remember someone gave a player rating to Hendo and rated him. It was Damon, I think, on an article, rated Henderson. I think give him a 7 and got loads of hate. And a week later, give him a 4 and still got loads of hate. So I think Henderson just divides opinion. But Thiago Alcantara is one of the top 5 midfielders in my lifetime to play for Liverpool, in my opinion.
As long as his hamstring isn't gone.
So who rates Henderson? That's always an interesting question.
Liverpool Twitter. Can't say
I don't mind. I don't think he's necessarily a bad player. I think he's the worst player in arguably one of the greatest teams. But if he went into any other team, it'd be a really good player. Yeah. We're just picking at the weakest link. So we're picking at the scab of the team in essence. But he could get into any other team in the Premier League, apart from maybe Man City.
Oh, Matty hit it
so I do rate him.
He's got the leadership skills. He has a big presence, but technically, he, as you said, he's the weakest link. So that's what you should be looking to replace. And if our midfield wasn't always injured, Harvey Elliott was already replacing him after a game last season. If he didn't get injured, he probably would have kept Henderson out of the side. Yeah,
I think the Fulham game demonstrated that Henderson can't play that far forward in a tight pitch. He needs to take a step back and play at 6. But we're not here to talk about Henderson. We're going to finish up on the Matip problem. So Konate's out, Matip's out. That leaves us with Gomez, Sepp van der Berg, Nat Phillips, Virgil van Dijk. It sounds all right, actually, when you start to list out all the potential defenders we've got to pull in. But
you think?
Well, who are you starting with, Matty? Against Palace?
I think you've only got Gomez and Van Dijk, but it worries me because Gomez, I know his injuries have all been serious injuries, but he's probably still only just working himself back to fitness, and now we're in a position where Joe Gomez has to start until Konate or Matip's back. Now, I rate Joe Gomez. Joe Gomez won Liverpool the league. I think he's fantastic, and I was made up when he got a new deal as well, but I'm just worried that any knock to Gomez or Van Dijk, then you're relying on Nat Phillips again, and that scares me.
But Nat Phillips with Van Dijk could be a very different Nat Phillips, couldn't it, Drew?
Yeah, I think as it's cliche.
Anyone with Van Dijk's a different defender.
Exactly, that's the cliche. But I'm really excited to see.
Except Dejan Lovren, he's the exact same.
Fair.
No, I'm excited to see Gomez step up, though. I think this is the first chance of him really staking his claim to be the number 2 next to Van Dijk. He started out that way, and because of injury, he lost his chance. But this is the first big opportunity he has to throw his name back in the hat. And I'm excited for him to prove our fan favorite Bojack wrong about Gomez's ability as a center back, because I think he's going to do bits for us.
It was always going to take something like this, wasn't it, Louis, for Gomez to get a chance? It was going to take a couple of injuries for Gomez to get a chance. And are we just panicking because we've had a few injuries in midfield and that looks bare bones, and now we're like, defence, and we're scarred because of the history, aren't we?
It's just amazing how it just lines up. Like we never just seem to get like an injury here, a few weeks, an injury there. It's like one domino falls over and it just knocks over everything else. Look, I think Gomez will be licking his lips and secretly thankful for this, but at the same time, his anterior cruciate ligament's probably licking its lips as well at the chance of, snapping in half like that. So we'll see, won't we? He's just not somebody that at this point could be relied on. His minutes were intentionally limited last year. And I believe they've got a bigger plan with Gomez. So whether this is just about in line with what they had planned, and they think that he can take, several 90-minute games in a row at this point, then fantastic. But I don't know, man. I would have just preferred for us to keep Matip. To be honest with you, it would have always been Van Dijk and Matip for the Palace game if everybody was fit. It will be somebody that Palace will look to target now as well. It's Joe Gomez coming in for his first game as centre-back for bloody ages in the Premier League. So it's going to be an interesting one, and I think Crystal Palace will be maybe the happiest party in all of this as well.
But you can't play against Virgil van Dijk. You can't. Any team who's got Virgil van Dijk as a defender, whoever the partner is going to be targeted every single time, isn't it? You're not going to go, do you know what? I'm going to go against Virgil van Dijk.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. That is a stupid thing for me to say. But it's amplified a little bit, like maybe when you see Matip in his prime as well, you're like, oh, fuck it. I'll just go deep and try and try and nick the ball in the center of the park instead. But they know that Gomez is coming back, still technically in recovery in some respects, I guess. Working his way back up to full fitness, hasn't played at centre back for ages. He's been deputising at right back. This is that whoever's starting at striker's time to shine and to bury Joe Gomez necessarily. So yeah, it's not great, and I'm not going to pretend that it is, but maybe he can still have a great game. I don't know.
Well, I'm doing the watch along for you on Monday, so we will see how it goes on there. Make sure that you tune in for that. So far on today's Premier League room, we have worked out that we think Thiago is overrated. We think Ronaldo is overrated. We think Roberto Firmino is... No, to be fair, on the votes, we believe Roberto Firmino is the most overrated player in the Liverpool squad. We believed that Ronaldo was the most overrated player in the Premier League. We believe that Man City as a general are going to give Bournemouth a lesson, although Matty holds out much hope. We believe the Chelsea-Tottenham game will be a classic, hopefully not a ball draw, and that Gomez is coming back in for a centre-back. This has been LFC Transfer Room. This has been the Premier League room where we've looked at a little bit more things. Let's hope Gerrard shows up Frank Lampard once again on the early kickoff, and let's hope that we absolutely dominate Palace on Monday, and we will catch you on the next one. Take care.